They're back. Barack Obama has taken a break from the beach. Hillary Clinton has come out of the woods, and they both are Democratic partying like it's 2008, taking their messages on the road to different audiences across America. Now, of course, not everyone knows how this whole former president thing works. Some people are hashtag outraged to discover that Obama is accepting $400,000 to speak at a conference sponsored by a Wall Street firm. Newsflash: in-demand speakers and especially former presidents get speakers fees and major book deals. The horror. But Obama appeared hashtag unbothered Wednesday when he unveiled the design for his new presidential center in Chicago.
What we want this to be is the world's premier institution for training young people and leadership to make a difference in their communities, in their countries, and in the world.
Meanwhile, the resistance just acquired its most high-profile member when Hillary Clinton joined the cause while offering her analysis of her election defeat.
I'm now back to being an activist citizen and part of the resistance. I was on the way to winning until the combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th and Russian WikiLeaks raised doubts in the minds of people who were inclined to vote for me but got scared off.
Joining me now are political strategist Eljoy Williams, MSNBC contributor Josh Barrow, Guy Cecil, former political director for Hillary Clinton in 2008, and Karen Finney, former senior advisor and senior spokesperson for Hillary Clinton. Thank you all, friends. Great to have you all here. Eljoy, I have to come to you first. When the Obama sort of outrage took place over the $400,000, it bothered a lot of people who supported him because, wait a minute, every former president does get these level of speaking fees. Some get even more than that. I mean, they've gotten a huge book deal, obviously, but he's a great speaker. The Obamas also have now put up $2 million for summer jobs and apprenticeships for Chicago youth, which is many more, times the amount that they got speaking fees for. Do you think this was overdone, the outrage?
Yeah, but everybody's going to outrage about everything that he does for the rest of eternity. So it's not, it's not out of the ordinary and not new when it's referring to President Obama. Everything is an outrage, whether it's something that is valid or invalid. I personally didn't care about the speaker fees, but since we're talking about it, I think you're right that everybody in that particular category gets speaker fees. I think I would have had a problem with it, and it remains to be seen, if he was only given speeches to those companies and institutions that were paying that amount of money, if he wasn't also doing other speeches, other community actions or things like that. So that remains to be seen what else he does with his time afterwards. But if it becomes a pattern where he is only giving speeches or only giving his time to people who pay that amount of money, then I think that's a problem. However, I do understand where people are trying to, distance themselves or want the left to distance themselves from Wall Street or the appearance of being 1% or wealthy, and how this can contribute to that factor, which we saw during the campaign. Yeah. It hurt Hillary Clinton in that aspect as well.
It's interesting, Josh, because I do feel like there is sort of this Wall Street contagion. Right? And on the left, there is this sense that anything that touches Wall Street is contagious. It has acquired a disease. And so even if, let's say, you gave a speech to, some Goldman Sachs entity and you turned all the money over to charity, that money is tainted forever. Democrats must never touch anything that is a bank. Am I just seeing that? Or
I don't think it's about Wall Street being a disease. I think it's about that, if the problem with speaking fees like this is that if people expect that presidents, and people have come to expect that presidents will take fees like this from industries that they regulate at great consequence, then people will reasonably worry that presidents will make choices in office to avoid alienating those industries and therefore not be able to take those fees. And I disagree with the contention that everybody does this. This is a relatively recent innovation going back to Gerald Ford. Jimmy Carter doesn't take fees like this. The presidential pension was created in the 1950s because Harry Truman refused to take speaking fees, board seats, and the sort because he said that would commercialize the dignity of the office of the presidency. So really the only Democrat who has done this at scale in his post-presidency is Bill Clinton. And I think that the Clintons' post-presidency business activities, where they've gotten very wealthy dealing with industries that they regulated in the past and that Hillary Clinton hoped to regulate in the future, I don't think that's been good for the brand of the Clinton family or of the Democratic Party. So I think it's definitely true that a lot of people people have done this. Barack Obama is not the first, but I think ex-presidents shouldn't do this. I think it would be better if Obama followed the same standards that Jimmy Carter and Harry Truman set out than the standards that Bill Clinton set.
But, Guy Cecil, the people who are not mentioned in what Josh just said were any Republicans, right? Because the only ex-presidents that I've heard criticized for the speaking fees, for what they do financially after office, are Democrats. There does appear to be a double standard. Karen is shaking her head, so I'm going to let her go after you. But Guy Cecil, there seems to be a huge double standard that only seems to take in the Clintons and the Obamas.
Yes, and the fact of the matter is, if Barack Obama was regulating and governing in order to get money from Wall Street, he did a pretty terrible job doing it. I mean, this is a president that helped pass Dodd-Frank. He is speaking at a healthcare conference, and he was the president that actually guaranteed 20 million Americans health care. So this president is not in office. He is not running for office. He has every right to do this. And I think this isn't viewed entirely through partisan lenses, and we should move on. There are more important things to talk about when you have the Kushners hawking visas in China and the president using the federal government to subsidize his properties. Why are we talking about a speech that, by the way, got the same rate as Larry the Cable Guy when he goes and speaks to events around the country? I think this is all made up and ridiculous.
And Karen, notoriously, Wall Street despised Barack Obama. He wouldn't invite them to state dinners. You had the whining and whinging of the head of Chase Bank, which I'm forgetting his name at the moment, who was constantly complaining. He calls us fat cats. Wall Street hated Barack Obama. Like, it's not as if there was this love fest. But now you do have, on the partisan point, Congress literally threatening to go after the president's pension, go after the pension because Obama, right? So
that's Jason Chaffetz being petty and ridiculous. I mean, let's remember that Jason also wanted to bring in the guy who had, been working on Hillary's server, a couple weeks ago, right? So, I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous, this idea of going after the fees. And I agree with Guy. We have so many bigger problems. And as a party, we have such bigger problems and things that we need to deal with. I mean, our problem is not about, I personally think, just, raising money from wealthy people. It's about how do we make sure we get back to the grassroots. If we're going to raise that money, let's use it to do things like what President Obama is talking about now, in terms of let's have places where we are training the best and the brightest and making sure that we're building leaders for tomorrow. I mean, let's do those kinds of things rather than worry about how much he gets paid to go, and get the same as Joe the Cable Guy.
Yeah, and by the way, he's also endorsed Emmanuel Macron in France and has been apparently very helpful to him so far. So he's doing other things besides just giving speeches. But let's move on from that just for a moment, and let's talk about the sort of reemergence of the Clintons and the Obamas, really, and what this does mean for Democratic politics. I mean, there is this sense also, Josh, that Hillary Clinton should stay in the woods with a lot of Democrats, that she should never come back out. And yet, here she is. She came out, she tweeted about the health care vote, called it a shameful failure of policy and morality, saying fight back on behalf of the millions of families. Then on Friday, CNN reported that she's going to launch a resistance PAC. So Clinton's trying to jump back into the fray. Good or bad for the party?
I'm much more enthusiastic about the reemergence of Barack Obama than of Hillary Clinton. I'm not thrilled about this one speech, but I think that Obama left office very popular. I think he's a very good messenger for the ideas that Democrats will be putting out in opposition to Donald Trump. I think that, I think there are a couple of problems with Hillary Clinton's reemergence. One is that she is an unpopular figure. Really, the only reason that Donald Trump was able to win this election was that so many voters went into the voting booth disapproving of both candidates, and voters who disapproved of both candidates broke overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. It's good for Donald Trump when he can have Hillary Clinton out there as the counterfactual for himself. I also think there's some internal business in the party where there's this temptation to refight Bernie-Hillary proxy fights forever, which is stupid. And one of the and I think it should be easy for the party to move on from that because people have shared goals and we all hate Donald Trump, et cetera, et cetera. But I think so long as Clinton is around and running a PAC, there's going to be this temptation to have these proxy fights, like we're sort of seeing the primary for governor of Virginia turning into a Clinton-Bernie proxy fight for no good reason. I see no significant policy difference between the two candidates, and yet the party's spending energy on refighting.
Let's let Karen in real quick. Karen and then Eljoy.
Well, hold on. Two things. Number one, I agree with you that this should not be a proxy fight about Hillary and Bernie, but Bernie is also out there giving a lot of speeches.
Well, he's an elected official.
Hold on. That helped, but he's doing it not just in place, not just in his own state. He's doing it around the country to continue to push ideas. And so I'm just, my point there is just to suggest that he also, his being out there and continuing to talk about those ideas, keep those ideas out there. And I think we should be talking about the ideas rather than trying to put them in a Bernie-Hillary frame. Second, Josh, Josh, I don't know how the hell you can say Hillary Clinton is unpopular when she won 3 million more votes
By reading
than
the
Donald
polls.
Trump.
She
Hold on,
lost
let me
an election
finish.
to Donald Trump.
Which is a tragedy, and we messed up, and she talked about that. But particularly if you look at the margins, they're very slim, and a number of people either voted third party or didn't vote or voted for Trump. And some of the people who voted for Trump, you and I talked about this earlier this week. I don't think you totally got what I was saying, and I'll say it again, was they were more afraid of diversity than they were of their economic concerns. I think that is a deep problem we need to deal with in this country. I think more importantly, I think the more people we have out there talking about ideas and helping, I mean, look, what she's trying to do with this PAC is to raise money to help to fund some of these fantastic groups that have, like Indivisible, I don't know specifically if they're going to get funds, but there are a number of really exciting groups that are out there. I'm working with one of them, and they are really trying to take charge and get involved. And I think anything that we can be doing to fund our grassroots and to be supporting young people in particular who want to take up the mantle and address these problems, because they're the ones who are going to have to fix what Donald Trump is doing. I think that is a good thing, and we should be glad for it.
So, okay, LJ, are we ever going to be able to get out of this vortex? Because it does feel like we are in a vortex we cannot escape.
Yeah, particularly because I think it's partly our fault in terms of those of us who go on TV and continue to talk about polls and the fight between Bernie and Hillary, and not again, the party is falling victim to this as well, and not again centering the people who make up that party. And so there are millions of people who voted for Hillary Clinton and believed in her as a potential president. And so as the party was, throwing Bernie Sanders out, all across the country to try to unite the party, that's what when I was here before and talking about that was what was missing. There are voters that voted for Bernie. There are voters who voted for Hillary Clinton, where they saw their own values and they saw their own political ideology in a Hillary Clinton. And those are, if you're saying not to, that she shouldn't be in the conversation, you are also telling those voters that their political values and that their input doesn't matter.
I wish we had more time. Guy Cecil, I feel like I owe you an entire segment by yourself. Because we are literally out of time. In my ear, there's a voice in my head that is saying we got to go like 8 times. I have to go.
That's okay. That's
Guy
okay.
Cecil, I owe you specifically a whole segment by yourself. Thank you, Eljoy Williams, Josh Barro, Guy Cecil, everybody, and Karen Finney. Coming up, the Trump FCC could be about to go after Stephen Colbert. What? Next.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.